Hello. Testing 1 2 1 2. Welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I'm your host, Latoya. If you can hear me, just wave. We're just checking out the sound real quick. Hey, okay. I see somebody out there that can hear me. Okay. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Welcome back to In Your Ear Radio After Dark. Again, I am Latoya, your host. I'm super excited about tonight, and I'm just looking forward to, you know how we do. You already know how we do. So I'm looking forward to that. So as we do in the beginning of the show, I have to share the video. So just give me a moment to do that. While I do that, I'll give you guys a chance to get ready and have your drinks ready because we're going to have a word of the day and of the night, and then we're going to sip every time we hear the word. You know, it's getting dark faster out here now in Las Vegas. So we definitely setting the mood with the sun setting. So that's what's up. Okay. All right, so it's all shared. I have my co-host that'll be with me tonight. Also, Miss Trish will be here a little later in the show. First caller's having some technical difficulties, so I hope that we can get him in real soon because I definitely like to get his point of view on the conversations that we have. So, just to top it off, I know why we all came here. I know why we're here. We're going to talk about sex, right? So before we do that, though, I just want to go ahead and break the ice and just shout out y'all, see how you guys are doing. How you COVIDing? Is everything good? Is life good? How are you feeling? Do you have your drink? You can put in the chat what you think the suggested word of the day is. We do already have someone who recommended one early in the week, and I'm thinking of going with that, except I think we're going to be sipping a lot tonight if we do. So I'm just saying. So you guys, if you enjoy the show, like and share on YouTube and Facebook. I appreciate it. If you haven't filled out your census yet, just to remind you, it was until September 30th, but it has been extended. And wouldn't you know that actually it was our president who wanted to make it sooner that we submitted our census documents than later. So I don't know why that was an issue for him, but usually through the end of October is when the deadline is to submit your census every 10 years. And it was cut short to September 30th. But some kind of fight went on legally, and according to what I've been told, we have until the end of October. But anyways, if you haven't filled it out yet, go online, 5 minutes of your life. It counts your community. That's very important. If you don't like bumpy roads, you want, technology in your schools, libraries in your neighborhood, grocery stores, all of that good stuff. So, it's a good idea to do it. And of course, you guys know in the news, we were talking about Breonna Taylor, rest in peace. The video was a video. Actually, it was documentation and audio that was released finally Friday. So it's 20 hours of whatever arbitration took place with the grand jury that was presented by the district attorney there, Daniel Cameron. So interesting to see how that's going to turn out. But I'm glad it was released because I do think that we need to know what's going on with that. So that's what's up. Shout out to all the Libras. I rep for the Libras. My birthday coming up. If you're a Libra, you real cool people. We the best sign out there, just so y'all know. But happy birthday to all the Libras. This is my birthday weekend, and I thought I'd do something a little different, switch it up, which is what I usually do at least once a year. I like to keep my hair braided and in other, we call protective hairstyles. And, sometimes I'd like to just, run my fingers through my hair and enjoy it. And it is what it is. And I'm getting compliments on it, so I appreciate that. It made me think about something because I know with a lot of men, they like the natural look. They like women without all the extensions or weaves and things like that. So I just want to know if you guys are, in the chat right now, just let me know, what do you think? Do you mind a woman, adding a little something to her hair, or do you rather a woman just be natural with her kinky curls or whatever it is she got, growing from her scalp? So let me know what you think about that. My condolences to Christy Teigen and John Legend. They lost their son, Jack, recently this week, and I think he went to 5 months, and then he passed away. So I know that I can't imagine what that feels like, but I'm for sure that it's very traumatizing, and my heart goes out to them. And it's so many women and men who have experienced, stillborn babies or miscarriages, people who really just want to have and extend their family and to go through this. And, we know women suffer a lot. Women don't talk about it enough, but women do suffer, You know, a death is a death, and especially if you carry the baby, you know, to have to lose it is very traumatizing. But we don't talk about the men. How does this affect them, especially being in a situation where you can't help your partner, you can't be there to offer any support? What can you do? You can't. Baby's gone, right? So yeah, that's just heartbreaking. It really is. And you know, I give my condolences again to Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. And yeah, so I am so excited about tonight. I'm so excited about our guests. I'm just humbled that they are here with us, because we know we need to have this conversation. And I'm looking forward to bringing them on. So yeah, I'm sorry about the technical difficulties, you guys, but we will be having first caller join us in the conversation as well. And Miss Trish will be joining us a little later. Again, in the chat, we need a word. We do that in the first 15 minutes of the show. Hey, I got a fun fact before we get started here, you guys. Do you guys watch Cosmos? I watch it and I think it's very interesting. You know, I just like to watch things to learn things and get perspectives. And this is with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's called the Cosmos, and it's interesting. But one of the fun facts that I learned about watching it was that there are colonizers within the insect family. Did you guys know that? So one of the colonizers is the wasp. Would you imagine that the wasp would actually prey on a cockroach and bring it into captivity, put it in captivity, like build rocks around it and make it so that it can't escape. And then it lays its eggs on its body, which the eggs hatch inside the cockroach's body. And, you know, the wasp goes about its business, and the cockroach babies hatch and they feed off. The wasp babies hatch and they feed off the cockroach. Yeah, we got colonizers in the bug family. Quite interesting. So I don't know. So that's quite interesting. So tonight we are talking about sex. Again, this is an adult show. Let your hair down. If you have questions, please feel free to discuss those questions. Oh, thank you. Shout out to my cousin Tasha, who said I'm looking great as always. I appreciate you, girl. I'm gonna pay you later. Thank you so much. But you know, this is a conversation that we may not talk about publicly, but a lot of us, I mean, it's nature, right? That's how we all got here, by sex. So this conversation is definitely an adult conversation, but it's also a real conversation. I'm just, you know, anxious to just dig into it, because these ladies are very intriguing to me, and I'm just enjoying just living up to this moment of having the show. So I'm going to try to get first caller in first. Let's see if he can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, first caller. My energy up here. I appreciate you. So
likewise,
we were talking about a few things before we dig into this. You know, we don't talk about sex, but one of the things we were talking about is, if you haven't noticed, I kind of got a little flat iron going on here.
Right? Yeah. I see you.
I know that men like the natural look, and I was just asking a question as to whether or not men prefer the natural look, or do they mind their woman having extensions and weave and things like that? How do y'all feel about that? So, what's your take on it?
I think it's both. Like me personally, I prefer the natural look. But there is a lot of guys who fantasize about have fantasies about stuff that's not natural or enhanced items.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not even a fan of a lot of makeup, but you know, some people need it and some people don't.
Okay, I hear you. All right. And to the guys out there, if you have anything to say, I see you, Albert. Thank you for watching on Facebook. I see you, BB, on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. And we also touched on the colonizers within the bug family, which is the wasp. So the wasp colonizes a cockroach, and you'll have to go back and watch it. It's interesting. You'll like it.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, moving into the conversation, I don't know. So you said something about hair, like it's a fantasy thing. So the men, that's their thing. They like to fantasize. That gets them going too. I
think for some of us, I mean, again, like for me personally, I prefer the natural look. I'm not a fan of extensions and weaves and wigs. Don't get me wrong. I mean, some people look great with them, and don't even need it. I mean, yeah. But I know men who prefer lace fronts and weaves and wigs. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know the difference.
Okay, well then that means she got her hair done right. Listen, it goes the other way. Men nowadays they putting stuff on the top of their head and sewing stuff on and lacing their fronts
Now,
too. So,
now let
ladies,
me
I
ask
don't
you this
know how
then.
do you feel about it.
Now, for ladies, how do they feel about men with Beijing, that fake beards and fake
Yeah, the dye
hair?
and all of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so he says, I think we prefer natural, but some women go with the wigs. Okay, yeah, that's a whole another story there with the wigs too, right?
Right.
Shout out to Albert on that. So yeah, okay. So hair, I think hair does make a difference when it comes to enhancing the mood, especially when we're talking about sex. So we're gonna get into this conversation. I'm gonna bring on my first guest with us tonight. She is Dr. Shameless, also known as Laura. I want to say that she is a licensed clinical professional counselor in Nevada and holds a master's degree from the University of Florida in health science education. She has a master's degree from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, in counselor education, and a doctor of human sexuality degree from the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality in San Francisco, California. She has been practicing as a therapist in Las Vegas since 2009. She grew up in New York, okay, and South Florida. So she's seasoned. Okay, I like that. And enjoys her tortoises. All right, I want to ask her about that as well. Friends, she enjoys her friends and sharing helpful information about reproductive justice and health. I really like that. She can often be found at local school board meetings advocating for real sex ed. Inclusive policies and access to care. She is engaged in local, state, and national political activities. Welcome to In Your Ear Radio After Dark, Dr. Shameless.
Hey there.
Hooty hoo, yay, yay.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks. Let me tilt that way. There we go. Little giraffe, little Wonder Woman. There we go.
How you doing over there?
I'm good. I'm good. I had a great day today.
Good. Nice Saturday. How are you COVID? Are you staying in the house? Are you getting out?
You know, I have taken a somewhat measured approach. The offices that I work in have instituted pretty decent safety policies, and I have my own private office, so I feel pretty comfortable going to work. So I've done that. I'll go to restaurants, and I've been on a plane. I'm probably doing more than some people are doing, but I feel like I'm not being stupid, and I'm taking care of myself. I've gotten tested a couple times and kind of monitor how I feel and all that stuff. So I feel okay.
That's good. Well, you look good. And,
Thanks.
you know, this is all something new to us. We're all dealing with it the best we can. I have kind of dabbled out. I got on a plane once and I never forgave myself.
There's no shame creeping in.
Yeah, it's a lot of guilt dealing with just being out and about for me. I know everybody deals with it differently, and I'm glad because it takes all kinds to make up this world. Yeah. I'm glad everybody don't think like me because we'll all be sitting around huddled up looking, you know. So I appreciate it. So, but thank you for joining us. You know,
I'm so excited.
I had a friend reach out to me. She wanted to have this conversation during this pandemic. She said, you know, the libido with her and her husband are different. She's not really into, you know, the intimacy, none of it. She could spend her whole day, week, month without it and be fine with it, except her partner thinks differently. So she said, we need to have a show about that. How do we get that going? Because I don't know what to tell her. Hell, I tell you to hang from the ceiling, do something cute, but I'm not, you know, I'm not a professional. That's just me thinking of, you know, ways to get around. So, but I see even with your blogs, you are very, very, I would say broad as to everything that you approach. I appreciate that about you. First caller, did you want to cut in? Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's a little bit strange that there's a lack of sex during the pandemic. I would think it'd be booming. Seems how there's nothing you can do. Can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right, but I think so sometimes people like have just disparity, so a difference in their drive. So somebody's into it and somebody's not. So how do you rectify that? How do you find that common ground? How do you make that work without resentment, without fights, without anger, without cheating, you know, all that stuff. So I think you're right. I think some people are like, sweet, we have all the time in the world and we don't have to get up early and all this stuff. But I think for some other folks, when there's a big gap in drive, it's going to lead to some issues.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's definitely something that we got to dig into. Another thing that I really find interesting in you, when I was reading your bio as to who you are and what your interests are, is that you are about sexual justice and dealing with the youth.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? What is that about?
So for about 15 years, I was in charge of the education program here in Las Vegas for Planned Parenthood. And what that showed me through 15 years worth of meeting with kids day in and day out was there's a great lack of decent, comprehensive, age appropriate, real education for them. And unfortunately, their health is suffering. So their emotional health, their physical health. When I came here and I started my first year at Planned Parenthood, Nevada had the #1 teen pregnancy rate in the country. We were number one. And I jokingly on a news broadcast, kind of off camera, but said like, well, I have job security. And I was kind of sadly joking. I mean, it was true, but it was a sad commentary.
Yeah.
So in order for kids to make good decisions, they have to be given information. So if we withhold stuff from them, not only are they going to just try stuff and figure it out the hard way, but there's also a lot of fear and a lot of shame, and they don't take care of themselves. So there can be infections that go on for much longer than they needed to and should. Pregnancies can happen. I think one of the things that got me so aggravated was there was a conversation within the school board community with folks who have opinions, and they didn't want, my understanding is they didn't want consent as a topic within sex ed because that meant that there was a chance people could say yes to sex.
I've heard that too. But you got to have the conversation, right?
But people are saying yes to sex.
I've learned every reason why: infections, embarrassment, emotional wellness, physical, health.
Right.
Why are people so afraid to have this conversation about sex?
I think for parents, a lot of times is they get concerned that the kids are going to ask them questions that are embarrassing, that they don't want to answer about their personal lives, or they're afraid they don't have the right answer and they don't want to look stupid, or they think that if they just don't talk about it, the kid won't do it, which we all know is bull. So that's not an effective strategy. My concern is, the rates of intimate partner violence, so dating violence, right, among couples, even among teenagers, is on the rise. And so if we don't talk about consent and how to obtain what I call enthusiastic consent, am I allowed to use words?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So my version of consent, it's enthusiastic consent. It's this. Fuck yes. That's what consent looks like.
Okay.
And if it's, I guess, okay, that's not consent. So no is no, maybe is no, and that half-assed yes is no. In order for it to be yes, it's got to be yeah.
And
unless we teach kids that A, that's the standard and that's how to act, and B, how to do that, how to practice it, how to hear that and look for it, we are going to continue to have non-consent incidents. And I think that's ridiculous. We don't need that. So not talking about consent is not the way to keep keep young people from having sex. It's a way to have a lot of non-consensual sexual activity.
Right.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about consent. Is there a way that you guys teach that what consent looks like from a male's perspective? Sometimes a woman could be saying, yeah, out of guilt or uncomfort, saying yes, but really means no.
Right.
So do you guys teach how best identify it?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are a lot of mixed messages out there. So my version of, I mean it like, fuck yes, it needs to be enthusiastic. It's like, hell yeah, let's do that. Or like, yeah. So we need to teach them that it's okay to be enthusiastic. If there's any hesitation, this is like a 0 to 99 is no, 100 is yes. You're looking for 100. Right. So are we teaching it? I teach it, but we, as a Planned Parenthood educator a number of years ago, FYI, in Las Vegas, we weren't allowed in the public schools. We're still not allowed in the public schools. So there's a vast, population that's not getting this kind of good quality education. We were in juvie, we were in probation, we were in boys and girls clubs, we were in charter schools. We were all over the place with Shanta. That's when we worked together. And
Shanta Jackson, that's my cousin, also author. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Shanta and I went out, and my other people that I worked with, and we'd go to these places, but we reached 3,000 kids a year, which was lovely for us.
Yes, that's very low.
That's not a huge number. Yeah. So, first caller, and catch your name, but
yes, first caller.
First caller. Okay, great. I think that parents and trusted adults. So that can be an uncle, that can be a youth minister, that can be a counselor, that can be a neighbor, that can be family friend, need to be having those conversations, being a trusted adult, being open, being a resource. So I think that's the way we reach more kids, because it needs to be this very deliberate approach to teaching our kids the do's and don'ts, the how to stay safe, the why it's important to use a condom, why it's important to get tested, why it's important to disclose if you have an infection. They don't know that. They don't even know how they get pregnant. They really don't. Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned Planned Parenthood and associating that, being a part of that program in Nevada, where now you said when you first started the pregnancy rate here in Nevada was number 1. Were you with Planned Parenthood able to bring it down, bring those numbers down? Where are we at now? Do you know?
Around somewhere between 12 and 15. So we've made significant strides. And I will tell you that part of that had to do with access to care. So that was one of the things that I mentioned is important. If kids if they don't know that they can get contraceptives, and if they don't know where to go get them, and if they go there and they can't get them, how are we going to reduce teen pregnancy?
Right.
So the kind of the party line in the schools was they wouldn't talk about Planned Parenthood. They just didn't. We're a conservative school district. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
And there's a lot of politics behind that organization. And I understand, and I'm respectful of differences. But I think it's a fair thing to say, and I don't work there anymore, but it's a fair thing to say they do more to prevent pregnancy than anybody else.
Yes, and I think, if you can speak to this, the stigma behind Planned Parenthood, because as you know, the current majority administration is trying to take that away and say that they don't want our tax dollars. They're making that decision for us. They don't want our tax dollars to be contributed to Planned Parenthood. And the rhetoric that they run behind is abortion. And so what I've learned about Planned Parenthood, and you've said a whole lot, yourself, is it's not just about abortion. It's about sexual health. It's about just education,
access to care.
Access to care and things of that nature. So speak to that, because I think that's a lot of rhetoric that these evangelicals, I don't want to drag you into my thing, but they're preaching about right now. That's their talking point.
Yeah, thank you. Because there's a really, really, really important point here that it's not a great little soundbite. It's not an elevator speech, but if you bear with me for 2 seconds, I'll explain.
Yes, ma'am.
There's something. So there are federal funds that go toward low income healthcare providers. It could be the neighborhood clinic. It can be ABC clinic. It can be whatever. Planned Parenthood applies to be one of those clinics.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is no federal dollars, zero federal dollars are allowed to go toward abortion services and abortion related services by something called the Hyde Amendment.
Right.
Yeah. It's a piece of legislation called the HYDE, the Hyde Amendment, and it prohibits any federal funds from going toward that procedure. So defunding Planned Parenthood just would have taken money away from my salary and my supplies, my paper clips, my newsprint, my stuff to go out to the kids to teach them how to negotiate safer sex, how to access birth control, what to look for an STD. That's what it would take away from. They can defund all they want. It's not touching abortion services.
Wow. Thank you. That's something I think a lot of people didn't know, including myself. So I definitely appreciate that. I think another thing that people have when it comes to sex education is they want to pretty much, be in control of what their kids know. And from what I hear, my child is a grown adult now, but from what I hear, what they're teaching as sex ed goals, they're talking about bisexual activities and different types of ways to have sex, not just intercourse. Is that true?
That'd be so. Here, let me do it differently. For me, my value system and my philosophy is about making sure that the message gets to the broadest audience. And so if I talk about some kind of sexual relationship and I keep making it Bobby and Susie and Robert and Sarah and Tommy and Shaniqua, then I am losing a part of the community that doesn't identify as strictly heterosexual. And they just tune me out. They don't want to listen to me because they're like, you're not talking to me. You're not including me. So it's not so much that anybody is saying, here's how to be bisexual. No one's doing that. No one's advocating for that. Kids are doing that on their own. No one needs to be taught how to be heterosexual, bisexual, gay, pansexual. You don't teach anyone how to do that. What you do teach is how to have healthy relationships, how to have access to care, and how to have good communication, regardless of the type of relationship you're having. It's interesting that you bring up parents, because one of the foundational pieces for me and for the programming that I used to provide, and that I talk about with my clients in therapy, I desperately want parents involved. I want them to talk to their kids. They don't. They just don't. In large scale, right? So it's not so much. I would love for the parents to have input as to the information that gets to their kid. Talk to your kid about what they're learning. Put in your own values. Sit with your kid and say, what do you think about teen pregnancy? What do you think about sex before marriage? What do you think about bisexual relationships? What do you think about an open? Talk to your kid. Then you're sharing your values and you're in.
Yeah, I agree. I think you said what needed to be said. I'm sorry, first caller, you want to?
Yeah, I do got a quick question. Now, what advice would you give to a woman who suffers some sort of trauma through sex and just isn't comfortable engaging in that conversation with their child because of the trauma?
So if you're friends with that woman, are you saying?
Oh, no, I'm just hypothetically speaking, just throwing something out there. What advice would you give somebody like that?
Oh, yeah, I would say then reach out to the community and look for resources that can supply that kind of education, and also seek therapy or some kind of resource to resolve the trauma so that you can heal, because nobody needs to go through life living with trauma for the whole time. So I would say we only do our kids a service when we give them information and make it so that they can take care of themselves and be healthy and happy and safe. So if that means reaching out to a counselor, a teacher, a therapist, a public health resource, then do that. But don't keep your kid in the dark because because it's difficult and challenging and traumatizing for you. You don't have to do it, but I'd say it's still important to get it done.
That's what's up. Thank you, Dr. Shameless, for outlining that. And this is definitely an adult conversation, but kids are included because this is an important conversation. As adults, we need to know how to talk to our children and be comfortable with this conversation. And that's why I decided that I wanted to have this conversation. 2.5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this. As grown as I am, I feel like I don't want to embarrass my parents. So, it wasn't something I felt comfortable talking about, but over time, I guess I've evolved in 2.5 years, and I look at life as for what it is. And this is, we're mammals. This is part of life. Yeah, and a lot of us are suffering in silence when it comes to these situations, from teaching our kids about it to having healthy, productive relationships, right, with our companions. So it's definitely, I feel called to just put it out there. And I think that, we can help a lot of people tonight just by having this conversation with them, sharing their thoughts with us, you sharing your expertise and asking questions and just having an open dialogue. So I thank you for opening it up and making it and letting it be known how important it is that it starts with kids, and that's important, and they need to be heard, and we need to feel comfortable having this conversation with them. And it's not to promote them having sex, but just to be educated, just like with everything else, right? Mm-hmm. So I have another lady that's coming on with us now, and I want to thank you, Dr. Shameless, for inviting her in. I'm very excited to have her too. Is that bad that I'm so excited about talking about
sex? I do it all day long, every day, so I hope not.
Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw the word out there for one of our fans who said early in the week that the word of the night, the drink word of the night sex. So we can go ahead and get our drink on. So the drink word is sex. And that's what we're doing tonight on In Your Ear Radio. We're talking about sex. That's how we all got here, and we're going to have a healthy conversation about it. But this lady, I'm very excited to bring her on. Just let me tell you a little bit about her before we do. Her name is Shanae Adams, also known as Honestly Nay. And she has the letters behind her, MALPCCCIGT, and she became a sex educator after joining Sexual Health Advocates peer education called SHAPE at the University of Missouri, Columbia, where she received her bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies. She has provided 10 years of service to her community in a variety of ways, including therapist, educator, and sex positive enthusiast. That's what I want to talk about. Her mission is Sexuality normalization. I also want to talk about that too. Explanation and melanated representation. Girl, you got lyrics. I like that. That all go together.
The bars.
Okay, bars. Her passion revolves around liberation of embracing sexuality. She is known for dynamic workshops, sex positive mindset, intuitive therapy, and eliminating the taboo surrounding sexuality. Y'all give it up for my girl Shanae. Woo-dee-hoo!
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Hey.
I am so excited to have y'all here. Listen, if you don't know, the drink word is sex. So, use your own discretion as far as how far you can go with this, but we like to have fun and have our cocktails. And that's what we're going to be doing tonight. But how are you doing over there? How's it going?
I mean, I'm chilling. Things are good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. You covenant? Are you going out? Are you staying in? Oh, I got that ready.
Oh, thank you. I am Black by popular demand.
Yes, ma'am.
No, time zones are hard. So me and my partner, we're gonna go eat, and then we didn't have time to eat, and so we're in and out. I try to do the things when my anxiety lets me go outside. I try to go outside.
Okay. So are you having more people contact you guys about sex therapy or anything of that nature? Has it picked up or has it slowed down?
Yeah, well, actually, I opened up my private practice in July. Okay. So from July to now, what is it? June, July, August, September, October. In 3 months, I have maybe like 30 clients. So I'm getting pretty close to being at capacity and not being able to take anybody else. Yeah. Wow. So it's been pretty good from where I'm sitting. I think a lot of people have been more interested in pursuing therapy now, and then I also work with like a lot of other therapists of color. So there's a whole network and umbrella of us where we refer each other out to whoever needs whatever service. So it's been working out pretty well.
And what is it? First of all, how did you get into sex therapy? What influenced you to want to get into it?
Sure. So I have been a sex educator for 10 going on 11 years now. And what I would find is that in my workshops, I'm very intentional about creating a space where people feel like they can express themselves. I'm very intentional about thinking about whose voice is in the room and whose experiences is in the room, but even more importantly, who's not in the room. And whose experience is not being accounted for. And I would find after a lot of my workshops, participants would come up to me and be like, you make me feel so safe in your workshop. I want to tell you about my genitals and about my love life and about...
How was your face looking when they asked? That's a straight face when you were
No, I mean so I began being a sexuality educator when I was an undergrad. So I like to say I had a trial by fire because when you work for Planned Parenthood or when you work for other orgs, you go out into your community and you just teach, right? In undergrad, I was teaching for my peers. I was going to my friends' organizations. I was in my friends' dorm meetings. So they would throw out random stuff to honestly try to catch me off guard. So I really had a trial by fire. So now I like to say to people, I'm like, there's very little that you can say to me that will make me react. And if you think you have a weird kink or you think you're doing something odd in the bedroom, the Greeks already done did it. So you're behind the curve if we're being 100% honest. So I would find in my workshops, people were calling and tasking me to provide this other service, and I just didn't feel equipped to do it. So that's what really led me to be let me go ahead and go get this extra degree. Let me go get my master's. Let me be very intentional about the communities that I want to work for, and the fact that I really went into my graduate program being everything that they're going to feed me, I need to digest and reprocess so that way I can show up for my communities, because the counseling education, we're studying theories created by white men for white men. I can't apply those to my queer community, to my Black community. So I really went in being let me understand the science and the art behind this, and then let me chop and screw it the way that's going to work best for me. And that's what I've seen a lot of success in being able to do.
Wow, I appreciate that. So what are the differences? What is it that you see that's different in some communities compared to your own community? As far as sexuality?
I mean, the main difference when we discuss sexuality in communities is that if you look at the Black community, it's very taboo. It's something that you don't talk about. It's something that's swept up under the rug. And it's something that you're not supposed to enjoy or take art or take passion in. And that's why I'm really about the liberation of embracing sex and sexuality, because especially as a queer woman, a queer masculine of center woman, if I can advocate for what I want in the bedroom, advocating for every other aspect of my life becomes just that much easier. And in creating spaces for people to be able to have these conversations and acknowledging the different identities that exist. Like when you give people space, people will take up space.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I had to sit on that for a minute. I want to take that in. When you give people space, they will take up space. Mm-hmm. I got a question. I know first call you want to hop in, but I got to ask this because I know you said having gone to these community gatherings and people feeling comfortable with you. Do they walk up to you and say, "Let me show you my genitals"? Do you look? I mean, what do you see and why are they showing it to you?
No one says, "Let me bust this open for you." People tell me things. They'll be like, I'm kind of concerned about, are my labia normal because one's longer than the other? Is my penis normal because it has a curve? Am I weird because I don't like penetrative sex? Am I gay because I'm a straight man who likes my partner to touch my booty? Like, these are the kind of questions that I hear from my participants. No one is. I have some friends who will be like, "Can I show you this?"
I'm like, I know I've had it, so I'm sure you have too.
Yeah,
your friends will do
I
it.
definitely have friends, and sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, okay." Drop trial. Let me see. Yeah. And then more often than not, I'd be like, "So MD is not behind my name. You should go to an MD, but I'll come with you. I will hold your hand if that will make you feel more comfortable."
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty interesting occupation you ladies have there. So,
yeah. So let me ask a quick question. How often do y'all get people of color coming in and saying, "Hey, we can't talk about this in our communities, so let me tell you something"? Do you get that a lot? People of color just coming in there where they can't discuss this anywhere else?
So the majority of the people that I see are people of color, and the main reason I hear from a lot of them that they want to talk to me is because I am a sex positive clinician of color, and that makes them feel like they really can start to open up and get into whatever it is that they want to discuss without fear that I'm going to judge them or I'm going to shame them or link things. I hear a couple of my clients right now are working with like religious trauma. So trying to heal the fact that they've been indoctrinated into these organized religions that have told them that their pleasure is something to feel bad about. And working with them and not, judging the fact that they like to masturbate or judging the fact that they want to watch porn or judging the fact that, that they are a voyeurist or an exhibitionist. Like, that is something that one of the main reasons why they seek me out as their clinician.
Okay. And what is a sex positive?
So sex positivity basically just means that I kind of break it down into kind of three pillars: that we acknowledge that everybody has experiences. We acknowledge that not everybody's experience is positive, and we acknowledge that everybody's experience is true and is valid. With those three tenets, sex positivity really just gives you the opportunity to not have to, make people prove to you. You really just accept what people are giving to you without your own biased or bullshit kind of clouding what their experience are. So if you acknowledge that we all have experiences, everybody's experience is valid, and not everybody's experience is positive, sex positivity just gives you the opportunity to let people show up the way that they show up. And when you embrace people with a sex positive lens, you actually make it easier and safer for people to be able to exist and live their lives without biases, internal biases, judgment, misconceptions, microaggressions. Sex positivity is really just like letting people be where they are without feeling like your opinion or input is necessary or needed.
Okay, now go for it. I'm sorry.
No, it's funny, and with all the respect and with all the white lens that I bring, the funny thing is I have yet to meet a person of any culture, race, label whatever, who's like, oh yeah, in my community we totally talk openly about this. I'm like,
Okay.
where is this fictional, theoretical, hypothetical unicorn community where everybody talks about this and they're comfortable? So I hear you, and it's just I don't. Everyone thinks that it's sort of, oh, in my culture we don't do this. I'm like, fuck, there's no culture that does this in America.
Yeah, it's American society that creates the immediate kind of put out of, this is not something that you talk about or you should go over. And then when you get into different communities, you get like different seasonings. So this is not something we talk about because of the patriarchy, or this is not something we talk about because of religion, or this is not something we talk about because it's not safe. But the American culture has a shame-filled lens of sex and sexuality, and that has to do with a lot of other communities outside of the United States as well.
Yeah.
Listen,
Okay,
that's good to know. I didn't know that.
I'm gonna take a left, considering it says after dark. There's an age-old question. Can you give me your professional opinions on does size matter? Based on
everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, now do you have clients who come in and say, "Hey, I'm just not satisfied in terms of size. What do I do?" Or
I haven't had that particular thing.
Yeah, no. I haven't had, my partner doesn't satisfy me because they're the wrong size. Everybody's body is different. You got to work with what you got. A lot of people who come see me who are unsatisfied in their sex is because they haven't spoke up and told their partner what it is that they want.
Yep.
I think that's very important. Go ahead, Gloria.
Yeah, sometimes they don't feel empowered and safe enough to say what they want. So that's where getting rid of shame and deconstructing all those voices in our heads of I'm not allowed and I shouldn't and it's wrong and it's dirty and I can't. We got to get rid of all that. And then it can be like, yeah, I don't care how big you are, what size you are. Let's just do this because that's what feels good. And I think that we're just not encouraged to do that. That's what sex positive means. It's taking that attitude of we should all feel very empowered and permitted to do that.
Absolutely.
Shout out to TL on Facebook. We appreciate you. You know what? The funny thing is, I made stir-fry eggplant tonight, you guys. I don't know what that is. And I got some rice with it too.
Nice.
That's what's up. So again, Julius, he on Facebook, he said that people get bored, and I guess you're leading to the fact that because they're not speaking up as to what they want. So how do you approach that? How do you start telling people what you need in order to get the excitement going?
I mean, in terms of boredness, all couples get bored. Everybody runs into a bored phase. So you are not alone in, maybe I'm just like bored with my partner. And that's a completely normal thing that happens in relationships. But when I talk to people about kind of advocating for what they want, the first thing is to kind of know, what is it that you want? What is it that feels good? And the best way to do that is through self-discovery and masturbation. So I'll ask people, a lot of my female clients, or my women clients in particular, is to be like, have you seen your vulva? Can you pick her out of a lineup? Do you know what feels good? Like doing pleasure body mapping, do you derive pleasure in other aspects of your body? And even non-sexual pleasure, like what's a scent that turns you on? What's something that you see or feel that makes you feel sexy and aroused? We really start by defining pleasure and defining those aspects of pleasure. And once you know what it is, it becomes a lot easier to say, this is what I want. This is what feels good.
Yeah. And before that can happen, I think one of the really important things, and I know you'd agree with me, Shanae, is the permission for those things to happen, and saying, I can be comfortable and I can give myself permission to explore my own body and to find pleasure and to believe that I deserve pleasure. And there's a lot of layers to that. And a lot of folks, be it through religion, be it through trauma, be it through shame, be it through family messaging, we have to unpack all that and heal all of those things before we can even get there sometimes. Yeah. So, you got to start where we are.
Yeah, really asking, like, hitting that question of like, what feels good, engaging that response, letting you know, like, okay, let's back, right? If you get the shocked look, it's like, okay, so I'm getting the feeling that maybe you don't think pleasure is something that you should be dabbling in, or you have permission to go into, like I'm a somatic therapist, so I be watching like the body, like the physical response, and really tapping into like where does that shame live? Where does that voice that tells you that you're not allowed to do that, where does that live? And what wisdom can we learn from what your body's been holding on to, so that way you can release it and make space for something else.
I think that's super important to be able to identify that you're bored or you need something more that your partner's not giving you, and being able to articulate that. But on the other side of that, if you are gifted enough to be able to, express yourself in that way, what if your partner is not reciprocating? They're not receiving that, and they're not, willing to extend you that gratitude.
I would say, let's start the conversation. What are you willing to do? So just in the past couple of days, I've worked with a couple of clients and I've said, here's an activity, come up with a list, an on the table list, and it's co-created. So are you okay with holding hands? Are you okay with kissing? Are you okay with naked spooning? Are you okay with showering? Are you okay with oral sex? Come up with a list of like thumbs up for both people. Like that's on the table. Now, each partner has the ability to say yes and not right now. So it's not but you said so and it's on the list and you have to, like, that's not okay. But I think it's asking about and, exploring what are the things. I give my clients, it's called a yes, no, maybe list. So it's this long list, a couple pages long of different activities that maybe they've never heard of or thought of or didn't know what it was, but that they can each fill one out. I give them two and it's, yes, I'm willing to do that. No, I'm not willing to do that. I might be willing to do that. And then you sit and compare lists and you're like, oh, okay. And then it leads to discussions and you can find other things. So I think that's a place to start.
Yeah, and then also, so when you talk about first coming up with what each partner is willing to do, I just recently had a woman who came in who was telling me that, like, they sat down, they made the list, they did the things, and he is just not willing or interested. So then I was like, all right, well, then we pivot. So when is enough enough? When do you feel like being in this relationship is no longer something that's going to serve you?
Right.
Yeah. And shout out to Jimmy on Facebook who's alluding to that you got to walk away sometimes, right?
Yeah. And maybe I think it's also sometimes worth the conversation of, is it okay to open this up and can I find pleasure elsewhere out in the, outside of this relationship and have that conversation, because we know that happens anyway. Yeah. So why not actually talk about it and come up with some ground rules and come up with consent and a framework and see if that's an option. There might be chronic health issues going on. That's a thing. So if somebody can't do something because of pain or, residual not feeling good, then okay, what are our solutions? What are our options? What are we okay with? And that takes a solid relationship, but it's an option for some folks.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, that communication and that intimacy.
Yep.
Now, for whether it be man or woman, for those with a low sex drive, is there things that you can do to bring that up a little bit that's natural without having to go to the store and buy something, or is there foods or anything you can do to increase your sex drive?
So libido and desire and arousal can be a very interesting interweave of emotions. When I hear people say that they have a low libido or they have a low sex drive, the first thing that I ask is like, is it a lack of bodily response that's occurring, or is it a lack of mental capacity that's occurring? And really starting to get into, is there just a lot of stuff on your mind and you're not
I'm sorry, you froze on us. Can you guys hear?
Yeah.
I'm still okay. So it's like, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world. Like I've had friends that have been like, yo, since the pandemic has started, I don't want to have sex. Completely reasonable. The world's on fire. Who wants to have sex when the world's on fire? On the other hand, I've had friends who said like, my sex drive is like up so high that the world is on fire. So, it can be, especially if it's like a kind of mental capacity thing. It's like thinking about what's occurring, what's happening, what is providing that blockage. If it's a physical reaction, sometimes the mental can control the physical. But if it's like if you have an erectile dysfunction, if you have a low arousal thing that's happening, if you have arousal non-concordance where you're getting horny in times where you don't mean to be horny and can't be horny in times when it's time to be horny, it's not as black and white, but it definitely provides an opportunity for exploration to work towards whatever the goal may be.
So libido is basically just your mood, your level of however you feel sexually. It's just a feeling, right? Is that, or is it actually associated with testosterone or hormones?
Yeah. So I would say, and Dr. Shameless, let me know what you think too. But I would say that libido is linked to arousal. So when people talk about libido, they're talking about their ability to get wet or their ability to get an erection. So your bodily functions can have to do with, the level of testosterone that's in your body. Male body people, female body people, you need testosterone to get an erection. Both male and female body people get erections. The clitoris does become erect, and you need testosterone in order for that to occur. And if you have a low amount and it's difficult to do that, that's a physical body response that, you would want to seek like a medical professional for. Whereas desire is something that more occurs kind of in the brain.
Yeah.
Got it.
For me, what I see with a lot of clients when there's this kind of either lack of, they'll say like, I just don't want to, like they're just kind of vague and they don't really explain, I just don't want to, or I'm not interested, or I don't like it. So I look for trauma. I look for anxiety. I look for depression medication. I look for obesity or lack of activity or a poor diet. Like, let's go with the physiological quick things first. Let's rule out the medical stuff. And then we'll go into, the anxiety and the PTSD and the trauma and all that stuff. But sometimes it has to do with physical stuff that is secondary to genitals and to testosterone and things like that. But it's worth looking at. So it's sort of like what to dig. I feel like, I don't know if Shanae feels like this, but I feel like we're detectives. Like, I just feel like everything, I'm a detective, and I'm like, I need to ask the right questions to get the right answer. Yeah.
I mean, I think that you guys have that. Some of us have that gift, but some people just get mad and say you're cheating. You know what I mean? They're not gonna be able to articulate themselves as well as you ladies are,
I mean, and I feel like that's a very the thing that came to mind is that's a very immature response for you to not want to give me the opportunity to actually tell you about what's going on. And if your response is immediately that negative and that immature, then maybe it's not safe for me to sit here and say, this is what's happening and this is what's going on. I think when we talk about relationships, there's so many unwritten rules, especially when we talk about monogamy and when we look at things from a heterocentric lens. There's so many rules about you should be turned on by your partner. You should want to jump your partner's bones whenever you see them. Sex starts with an erection. Sex ends when that erection is done. You should always be in the mood. Why wouldn't you want to have sex? That kind of thing. And it's like, the issue with that of having all these unwritten rules means that you may accidentally break a rule that you didn't even know was a rule. And now you got a partner whose feelings are hurt because you done broke some unwritten rules. So that's why it really takes, the communication and the what is it that you want? What is it that you like? How many times per week would you like to be having sex? What is sex? What does that even look like? What kind of experience is it that you're looking for? So just to be really curt and short with your partner and be like, oh, because you don't want to have sex with me, you must be cheating on me, or you don't think I'm attractive, or you don't think or feel this or do that. It's like, no, you can't speak for another person. All you can do is open the door for another person to tell you their experience.
Shout out to Marquella, who's watching us on Facebook Live. She said it's a good time for couples to role play and act like they're in love again and do the stuff they used to do sexually, switch it up. Do you guys find that a lot of couples are into the role playing thing though, the reset and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Decent number.
Humans like to do stuff. Humans like to do things. Yeah.
Increase the libido, right? That might get you a little excited and get the juices flowing.
Could.
It could.
I thought something was interesting when I was looking at Shanae, when I was looking at some of the posts that you made and on your page, and you were talking about sexual addiction. You said you don't believe in sexual addiction. You think it's just like a hyperactive thing. So how did you come to that idea? Because I do know a lot of people say that they do suffer from sexual addiction. So what are you saying to them?
I don't think sex addiction is real because addiction changes your body and your brain's chemistry. If you're a person who is addicted to heroin, your pleasure reward system, your pleasure reward center in your brain looks different from a person who is not addicted to heroin. A person who claims to be addicted to sex has the same brain as a person who claims to not be addicted to sex. So because you don't have that physiological change, I don't think it's an addiction. And also, like when I say, I think that sex addiction appears more as an obsessive, it appears more as a behavior disorder. And one of those behavior disorders can really fall in line with like OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. So it can be a compulsion, or it can be a what is it? OBS, or what is it? Clinical term. But I think it's a behavior disorder. I think that it is a behavior disorder and not a addiction, because addictions change your body's physiological chemistry.
Right. To me, yeah, it's all about compulsion and the lack of the ability, like that you're just not good at curbing that desire. But that's not a thing. Like you're not Jones, you're not fiending for sex. You might be aroused, you might be horny, but that doesn't mean it's not the same sort of withdrawal and desire when it would be a drug or alcohol or something like that. What I check in with my clients about is I ask about activities of daily living. Are you still going to work? Are you still paying the bills? Are you still showing up to engagements that you agree to with your friends? Are you still doing life? Or is it interfering with your activities of daily living? If it is, then to me, that's compulsive behavior. And so let's talk about what is that providing for you? What can we substitute for that so that you can get back to doing your stuff and put sex back in a healthy kind of mindset and framework?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So also, we talked about communication. What is emotional intimacy? Like, does that come before you can get sexual? Or does that enhance the libido?
I mean, you don't need intimacy to have good sex.
Mm-mm.
You don't need good sex to have good intimacy. Like those are not, they're like separate bubbles and they come together in a Venn diagram, but they are not like a cause action of reaction kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can have emotional intimacy. You can have any form of intimacy in a platonic relationship. You can have emotional intimacy with your friends. If this is a person whom you feel like you can really shed down those barriers that prevents you from saying what you really feel or showing those emotions that you would rather not the general public see. But intimacy is not a precursor for sex.
Somebody put on there that emotional intimacy is at foreplay. I was thinking along those lines that somehow you get emotionally connected to that person where you like them and you get this certain type of feeling and that makes you feel a certain type of way about them.
I think for some people that's true. And for some people it's what they want and need. But I think that we've grown up with very gendered ideas about that. And I feel like that gets lumped on female bodied people and female identifying people a whole lot more than it gets dumped on men, male identified people. And so what that creates is this expectation and these pressures of, I think that's what leads to that idea of if a woman or a female bodied person goes out and has, let's call it indiscriminate. I hate the word promiscuous. It makes me crazy because it only applies to one gender. But if she goes out and has sort of, anonymous, nameless sex, suddenly there's something wrong with that because didn't you want intimacy and emotions? And like, that's bad. You're not playing by the rules, young lady. And it's like, who the fuck gave me those rules? Like, I didn't sign on for that. So I think it just creates I think it creates conflict. I think it creates unnecessary expectations and roles that we sort of put on ourselves. And when we can get rid of those and be authentic and figure out what do I want? Who am I? What brings me pleasure? We're going to have a much better, happy life.
Yeah. I think, I think one of the big issues with the sexual intimacy thing with some people with the libido, as we were talking about, is one of the concerns was you have the male who is really, active and ready to go at any time. But then you have the woman who, like I said earlier, that she could go without it during the week or for a month or however long. And, at some point, I know their statistics show that that's called, sexual you're sexually inactive when you're in a relationship, if you're having sex just once a month or maybe 10 times a year. And some people are experiencing that. Like, how do you get this person to get on board to get them out of a sexually inactive place?
So for me, I would, again, it's the detective work. So we got to figure out, like, what are the underlying factors here? We got to rule out medical conditions. We got to look at their lifestyle. We got to look at their overall health. We got to look at trauma. We got to look at whether, things are consensual. We got to look at shame factors. We have to look at, like, health in terms of, am I worried about pregnancy or STDs? Do I trust that my partner is not bringing home something, which is why I'm not wanting to be with them? So to me, the exploration is a lot longer. If we get to the point where all that's taken care of and we have, in my heart, I want there to be more, I want to do it. Okay, great. Then to me, it's a matter of minimizing the gap. We may never be at the exact same level of desire. So there's always going to be a little disparity, and that's okay. But how do we get to the middle, and what middle is enough for each party?
Yeah.
And then what does it look like?
So I don't know, Shanae, or maybe even Dr. Shameless, do you offer any suggestions on like aphrodisiac, something that could help enhance the mood?
So so I'm a tantrika, which means that I practice the art of tantra, which some people think of as a religion, some people think of as a lifestyle. I think of it as an intentional practice, living your life with intention. So I might suggest intentional practices that you can do with your partner to help arouse or to help bring that desire, to help, make a moment in which you want to actually engage in that intimacy. And sure, that can look like, eating oysters and having chocolates, but it can also look like, intentional touch your partner with intention, without looking at the clock, without trying just to get in to do the do. Sometimes when you look at people who have been in a relationship for a long time, who haven't had sex for a long time, if you're not enjoying, if you feel more like, I just saw this on a TV show, like if you feel more like your partner's sex toy than a person who's actually engaging in the experience, why would you want to have sex anyway? So really, like, slowing down and taking time to be intentional with what you're doing, how you're doing it, creating an atmosphere in which feel good pleasure can occur. Some of the things that I really work with some of my couples.
Speaking of things that you do to help, that you're recommending that, you can do to help enhance feel good and pleasure, you get involved with other, stuff outside of just the people, like the toys. You kind of play around with the toys too, right?
Mm-hmm. Who doesn't?
You recommend that?
Yeah.
Okay. You got quiet. I don't know.
We got it. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Okay. So my question is, do you recommend that maybe people try to bring other things into it, like toys?
Sure, if that's something that they're interested in. The same way I would recommend kink, if that is something that the couple's interested in. Like, I don't, like, nothing is like Laura was saying, like, nothing is one size fits all. You really have to be a detective and figure out, what may work well. And sometimes you present options and people look at you like like you're an alien. Sometimes it doesn't work, but for people who are interested in toys or who are interested in kink, that is something that you could present as an option.
Yeah. Okay. So you can tell us more about that, because I'm sure there are ladies and men out there who are interested in that. So if you have anything you want to share with them in regards to how to, purchase or look into different things that they can do to help enhance their, nights alone, definitely feel free to share that information as well. Another thing that I was reading about is when you were talking about what was it exactly? I'm sorry, I'm losing my thread here, but it was what was the topic? I'm sorry. First caller, go ahead. I'm sorry, I lost my thread here.
Okay, now quick question now. Can you speak to what does a healthy sex life look like? Because I think a lot of them have sex and we just assume she's not complaining, he's not complaining, it's healthy. So what does a healthy sex life look like?
It depends. You've been we're doing those now. The answer is it depends, right? Okay. So for me, it's really interesting. I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things I ask my couples is, what is your idea of an ideal sex life? And then I caution them and I say, please don't answer with the number of times per week or month, because that's usually what it is. I want to have sex 3 times a month or week, whatever. And I'm like, that's it? That's your ideal? Like, that's it?
That's
so,
where I was going.
Yeah. And so there's so much more than that. I think that, you know, I want this percentage of quickies. I want this percentage of role plays. I want this percentage of long, languishing, kissing and touching and rubbing and loving and that sensual soft. I want this amount of like, beat the crap out of me and leave marks. Like, what do you want? Yeah, I know. But you got to figure out what you want and then share that with a partner or partners and then come to some agreements and listen to what they want. And so what is a healthy sex life? It's whatever is fulfilling, whatever is consensual, whatever leads to greater connection, if that's what you're seeking. Some people are like, I just want to be able to do a different person every night of the month, you know, every day of the week. Okay, if that's your healthy sex life, you go with that. So I think it very much depends on what a person wants and what the partner wants and you know, compromise and collaboration and communication. What do you think, Shanae?
I mean, I agree. There's not a one size fits all for anything. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's needs are different. And you have to be able to speak up and say what it is that you want. Even when, you know, sometimes when people say like, what is a healthy sex life? They do go to like, so should I be having sex 4 times a week? Like, is that normal? Right. And like, it's so when I explore like, what is a healthy sex life? It's like, what do you want to feel like when you're having sex with your partner? What do you want to feel like before? What do you want to feel like afterwards? What do you want to feel like 2 days after the sex has occurred? You know, there's not a one size fits all. What I always like to tell people is like, as long as you are with a consensual adult or adults and no one is getting hurt in a way that they do not consent to, that is a healthy relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's good. Another thing I wanted to touch on with you, Dr. Shameless, is I was looking at your blog and I think it's very, very interesting. And you had one that you were talking about surprising questions to ask your partner. And I wanted you to kind of elaborate on that, like what that's about and what that can do to kind of turn the heat up in the bedroom.
I think maybe it was in terms of that in the context of shame. And so basically, for me, my whole kind of philosophy is our sex lives and our current state of sexuality in the United States is based on, like Shanae said, like this underlying thing of shame. We're all just supposed to not talk about it, not like it, not do it, like whatever. And that's ridiculous. And a lot of that comes from those initial messages of it's wrong, it's bad, it's dirty, it's not for, you know, whatever. And then the gender thing and then the age thing and it's nonsense. So for me, I think it was more a matter of creating that, if you know, with a partner or partners, if you want to do different things, being able to say, hey, I'm interested in a little bit of anal play with a toy. What do you think about that? And having your partner having this established communication and safety where your partner goes, what is wrong with you? It's disgusting. Oh my God, you're gross. So now we've blown everything. That person is never going to ask for anything again. And we've created shame. And so I think it's more a matter of being able to explore and have that creation of a safe space and a dynamic that you feel okay asking for the things you want, saying no to the things you don't want without shaming the other person and devaluing their request. Maybe that's where we were talking about. I don't remember that particular blog post.
Okay, I was kind of intrigued to just because with me personally, I like to know different questions to ask, the things that I wouldn't normally ask a person. You know, I'm just looking for, you know, some new ways to approach the whole intimacy thing. So that's where I was going with it. But I know for a lot of people, like you said, it could be health issues as far as why the intimacy is low.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, you know, that is just you're not into it. It's more to it. And you have to have that conversation. So I appreciate the fact that both of you made that very, you know, at the top of the line is that you have to communicate with your partner and talk about it. Like you can't just be upset and go, you know, not getting what you need. You have to express yourself. You know, what's the purpose of being in a relationship if you can't talk and say what you need, right? And like you said, Shanae, that if you can't communicate it, you probably need to just go ahead and move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, so that's important too. And
you know, I think there's also another layer. I want to talk about like community and friends and sort of how we inadvertently and not unintentionally create shame. So let's say you're hanging out with your friends and somebody talks about like, oh, so and so, my whatever person, we're thinking about exploring such and such. We're going to go to the swingers club, or we're going to the Rooster, or we're going to go to the Green Door, or whatever. Shanae, those are local clubs here. And so your friend goes, oh my God, that is gross. So now you like, oh God, I'm wrong. I'm bad. And so shame is not just created by partners and families, it's created by peers and friends. And so we need to be careful. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just asking for folks to kind of be mindful of that you can say, wow, that's not for me, or it's interesting that you do that. I don't know that I would want to. That's fine. Nobody's recruiting. Like, do your thing, but don't shame others. That annoys me. I think it's yucky. Yeah.
Listen, I support what you're saying. I think that's very important because I think people can be very judgmental, and that's probably why they don't talk about it. Because you never know. You might, if you felt comfortable having those conversations, you might be able to help people enhance their relationship. But they're like, oh, that's what you do. Oh, you go there. Oh, okay. And then they might want to try it and like it. So you just never know. But judging does, that's an issue. Listen, if you like it, I love it.
Yeah. And I want to bring up one other thing that I don't think either of us have mentioned, but we both know is a huge thing. A lot of times people are not, wanting to participate in intimacy because of body image issues. And it's not just the size thing, but just body image issues. Yeah. And that is something that I think is universal. It's a huge issue. And people are just incredibly self-conscious about what they think is not ideal and not perfect. And it stops them from being intimate. It stops them from exploring and from playing and from creating those interactions where intimacy can actually get built. And so, that's something to work on.
And how do you work on that? Because I think that's a very big issue. I think that has a lot to do with how men or women approach, intimacy because of how they feel about their bodies.
Right. So I think being mindful around your partner as to how you're talking about other people and what what a person is saying is as ideal, or, oh my God, look at them, or that, they're perfect, or I wish I had blank like that, or whatever. It kind of feeds those messages, probably unintentionally, that, well, I'm not good enough. So having that conversation, like sometimes I get self-conscious about this role right here. And so, I might say to a partner, please don't touch me, just right there. Just right there, please don't touch me. And as long as they'll honor that, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable and safe with my body. It ain't perfect, but it's what I got. And so it takes a lot. It's one of those, it's probably one of the most difficult and I think long-term issues in therapy to do either an eating disorder or body image stuff. It's hard because we have all this media telling us exactly what we need to look like. And it's amazing because we need to look like everything. Like it's like, wait, which one? But we have to look like something that we're not. And so the pressure is huge culturally and from media influences. And so I think it's just one of those deep dive therapy things to work on.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. Who knew that it was so deep? Sex was so deep.
And then I think there's so much genital shame too. I mean, you were, first caller, you were asking about like size mattering, and I'm assuming you meant penis stuff. Right. But there's so much, yeah. And Shanae, you were talking about the hypothetical of, one labia is longer than the other labia. There's a lot of shame about taste, about smell, about body hair, about texture, about all kinds of things. That's a really hard place to go to. I don't want you near me because I'm afraid I smell bad. Real tough sentence to say. And so, having those normalizing conversations and having understanding about what healthy is and how to, what does that look like? And we are not meant to smell like roses. And had a conversation with a 13-year-old client the other day who was having some issues. And I said something about douche and she's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, no douching, and I'm like,
I was going to say, people still do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And sure enough, she's got an infection and, and I'm like, but mom is telling her that's part of hygiene. You need to do this.
Yeah.
So, that's another layer of shame is, body image as size and shape, but also body image of genitals, boobs, everything. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. So, you know that you just supposedly getting bored or your energy isn't there. It could be so many things that you're just not being honest with yourself about. Maybe you have issues with your body. Maybe you have issues with your smell. Maybe you have issues with trauma that happened in your life in the past. Maybe you just have stigmas, religious stigmas and things that keep you from opening your mind and just enjoying, the presence of your partner. It's so many things to it. So my takeaway from it is to ask yourself the question, if you know that, okay, I'm not in the mood, why aren't I in the mood, right? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why aren't I excited? What caused me to be excited before? And what has changed? So I think, it's important to start the communication, but I think you actually have to start talking to yourself first. You have to check yourself first and have that conversation with yourself. So I think,
the mirror image, and I think what can be a really helpful and informative, question of that question is, what do I need? So sometimes it's tough to identify what's missing. Sometimes it's easier to identify what I want. Like, I would feel safe and comfortable if it's like, okay, I got that. I would, feel safe and comfortable if you told me that I taste good, but that's, you've never thought that was proper or okay, but that's what I need,
so mandatory.
Right. Yeah. But people don't, people don't do that. People don't think. Yeah.
So with the people that you talk to, I just want to know, is there a popular sexual position that people like more than others? Have you heard anything down the rumor mill?
Everybody's body is different.
No common sexual position.
I don't know. I definitely have heard from female-bodied people a lot that they like doggy style. I definitely have heard that come up, at least, more than some others have come up. A position that I think is really interesting and can feel really nice would be if it's male body, female body, woman face down, legs closed, man on top, entering between, with straddling, but going between the legs with legs closed, because you get a whole lot more stimulation of labia. It may not be as deep. So somebody who is with a bigger partner who gets sore or tears or it's too deep and it hurts, that sort of kind of prevents that from happening. So that could be an interesting position that people, haven't tried before. I think there's this idea that we're supposed to be wide open all the time. And it's like, we don't have to be. Yeah.
Now, quick question. What advice would you have for the fellas? Her libido's up, I'm raging and wrong, ready to go when it's over, pre-ejaculation. What advice would you give to fellas to prevent that?
So premature ejaculation?
Right.
Again, it depends.
Yeah. I mean, so it depends on what is behind the premature ejaculation. Is it that you have the ability to get an erection and you can't maintain it? Okay, cool. Maybe look into something like cock rings. Maybe look into something like a penis pump to help pull the blood into the penis so that way you can get an erection. If you can't get an erection, then again, let's explore, like, is it a mental thing? Is it a medication thing? Is it a diet thing? There's no kind of one-off or quick answer as to why a person may be experiencing premature ejaculation. Even people who can maintain erections, sometimes, you just bust your nut before you're ready to bust your nut. Especially for people who have penises, maintaining an erection after the second orgasm becomes a lot easier. That erection tends to last a lot longer for some people. So maybe you have to bust that first nut so that way the second one is ready to go.
It's like burning the top card in poker.
Yeah.
It's like that one doesn't count.
Knocking away the first pancake. No one wants that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I watch on movies where man, they do their thing, they masturbate before they go on a date.
Beforehand. It's a strategy. It could work for someone. Sure. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's what I've always heard growing up. Like, hey, you want to jack off before you get over there, that way you'll last longer.
It could work. I
for
think
some people.
Yeah, it could work. If it works for you, great. And if that's what you want, sometimes a really fast, intense quickie is amazing. And that's all both partners want. So there's nothing wrong with that sometimes. So
Yeah.
checking in with your partner and saying, how do you feel about it when it goes real? And the interesting thing is defining premature ejaculation, because I think a lot of times there are many men who would define it as, well, I only lasted 5 minutes. That's not premature ejaculation. So we got to define our terms here and figure out, like, okay, do you want to last longer than 5 minutes? Okay. So there's different strategies and different physiological things you can do. And I love the idea of the cock ring is great. So if people don't know, it's just a flexible ring that would go at the base of the penis once an erection happens. And what it does is it constricts the blood flow. So it keeps the blood trapped in the penis. So it maintains an erection. Do not keep that on more than 30 minutes. Do not keep that on more than 30 minutes. Dangerous.
I didn't know.
I'm like, get enough. Yeah. I don't want anyone getting hurt.
Oh, Lord. Oh, that's a funny one. I don't want to leave without addressing this question that was asked by a conscious type person on YouTube. Thank you for watching our In Your Ear Radio After Dark Live on YouTube. He says his wife says she sometimes experiences painful sex. What's usually the issue or the resolution?
Everybody's body's different.
Yeah.
But I think it could be associated with having an infection or something too, right?
It could.
Sure.
It could. For me, I would go first with, is there enough lubrication and arousal?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a
Lube
lot of
is your
misconception. Yeah, lube is totally your friend. Find a good lube that you like that, re-wets if saliva is applied, doesn't get all gummy and beady. Wiping off the sheets afterwards. It's so annoying. But checking in with your partner. So it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions and lack of information about female arousal. So just because a female body gets wet and creates wetness, that doesn't necessarily mean she's all the way aroused. Right. Mm-hmm. There needs to be engorgement, which is basically the labia and the surrounding tissue getting filled with blood. And then everything becomes a little bit more elastic. If we get really, really excited, the uterus actually tips away.
Tilts up. Yeah.
Yeah, so that there's more room. And so the penis, if there's a large penis, that it can actually slide under it so we can accommodate, more. So female arousal is such a misunderstood thing. So my first question would be, is there enough lube? And where is the pain and what is the pain like? Mm-hmm. That would be an important thing.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. I think it's an important question too. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, with anything, if you're still having those issues, to go see a doctor, because it could be some underlying health issues for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We tend to ignore that. I know with Black women especially, I can speak for myself, we ignore our pain and we kind of try to tolerate it and hope that it goes away wherever it be it, wherever it is. And then by the time we go to the doctor, it's a little further along than it needs to be. So don't suffer in silence. You can get help. So somebody's asking, is it still after dark? You don't feel like after dark to y'all? What? We sounding too technical, ladies? Help us out here. What? I'm enjoying the conversation. And I appreciate you ladies because, these are real conversations we need to have. And I know that people that are listening, they hear the message. The overall message is communication. We're adults, we're grown folks. We should be able to talk to each other and say what we want and need out of a relationship. And that's how you keep it going. And, sometimes maybe that causes you guys to part ways, but at the end of the day, it's about living your truth and living your life and, getting what you need out of it, be it sex or just emotional intimacy or whatever it is you need out of that relationship. And it starts with communicating and telling that person, what matters to you. And I like that. So go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just going to ask for first starting with Shanae, where people can follow you on your social media outlets as well.
For sure. So you can find me at honestlynate.com. On honestlynate.com are some pre-recorded webinars that really go in line with what we've been talking about. There is a workshop up there called Vet Check Split, the conversations of non-monogamy. And while it is a little bit tailored towards non-monogamy, those conversations are actually the conversations that occur in any relationship. So the vetting conversation you have before you start dating, the check-in conversation you have multiple times throughout your relationship, and then the split conversation when you decide to end things. So I know that we keep saying a lot, the key to everything is communication, and then nobody really kind of breaks down what communication is or what that looks like or how you can engage in it. So vet check split is really dope. And then we're talking a lot about arousal. My Hacking Arousal workshop talks a lot about the female arousal cycle and what it looks like for a fully aroused female body person when they reach that state. And also kind of, disproving that myth of like tight pussy. Aroused, happy pussy is open and welcoming. It is not tight. If you have tight pussy, that is not an aroused pussy. It is not a pussy that wants to entertain you. So Hacking Arousal really goes over what the arousal process is. We break down the difference between desire and libido, and even just like the research that's out there, especially for like my nerdy ones out there, if you want to learn more about desire in the brain and the disorders that can occur that way. So honestlynae.com has all of that. You can also find me on Instagram at honestlynae. It's NAE. And that's where you'll find out about other workshops I'm doing when I drop new webinars. We talked about toys for a minute. I sell electroplay toys. So if that's your kink, that's something you want to get into, honestlynae.com is where you can find me. And it also has links to my therapy and my community resource center that I co-founded.
Thank you for that.
I do got a quick question for you because I heard you say the word kink a couple times, right? Is there a difference between a kink, a fetish, and a fantasy or a fantasy?
So kinks are things that you do that can lead to arousal. They can also be things that you do while you're actually engaging in sex. A fetish is an attraction to a non-sexual thing. So people have feet fetishes or people have a furry fetish. So it's attraction or interest into a non-sexual kind of thing, being turned on by non-sexual things. Fantasies are the things that you think about. So you can fantasize about a fetish. You can fantasize about kinks. BDSM is a particular type or style of kink. So it exists underneath the umbrella of kink. And I teach October is National Kink Month. So again, on honestlynae.com. Yeah, and at honestlynae, every Friday I will be releasing a kink tutorial. And you can pick that up on my website. So I'll teach you how to do impact play. I'll teach you how to do breath play and choking. I'll teach electro play. I'm teaching sensation temperature play. And then I'm also teaching forced orgasm and orgasm denial. So every Friday in October, sign up for my newsletter so that way you'll know when the things drop and they come out. But it is National Kink Month, so it's time to let your kink flag fly.
Okay, how many of y'all like choking? I'm just asking.
A lot.
There are a lot, which is why I do the workshop, because there is a way to choke your partner safely.
And not safely.
And there's a way to not do it safely. And I want you to do it safely. I would like everyone to be alive after the encounter is over.
Yeah, we didn't mean to make a snuff film, I swear. Yeah.
Yeah, it can happen. I'm sure that story. That's so interesting. Funny, that's a popular thing. Choking. Okay.
It's really interesting. The other day I was talking to a gentleman and something about kink came up, and he didn't know what kink meant, but he also didn't know what vanilla meant. And I'm like, okay. Like I was kind of at a loss because this is my world. Huh?
What is it?
So I think the best way to describe it, vanilla is sort of anything that's not kink. And
just green, right?
What?
Green or plain simple?
Yeah, it can be, but it doesn't mean it's bad.
Learn about this stuff.
Everything is kinky, though. Everybody's kinky. Everybody is kinky.
Really?
Well, okay. Yeah, I guess it's just the idea that kink is this thing that you have to be and do, and like you have to be kinky enough to be kinky, and it's like, no, you don't. Like, oh God, I had to explain this to my parents. That was fun. But, I was like, it can go from like a little pat on the bottom to like, the whole like fire play, breath play, choking, leather, spandexy, latex, everything. So it's, I like 50 Shades of Gray bullshit, 50 Shades of like from beige to charcoal, like it's everything. So
it is a spectrum. It is not a all or nothing.
No.
By definition, porn would be considered a kink too, right? Watching porn? By definition?
Could be, sure.
If that's how you identify, yeah.
Yeah.
That's you say, Shanae. Everybody has kink in them. Everybody's a kink. They do kinky things.
Everybody's kinky. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's that. I call it the myth of vanilla because everybody is kinky.
Listen, I'm not going to argue. I think that is true in some degree, in their own way, definitely. So, Dr. Shameless, where can people follow you and learn more about what you do?
So they can, my email would be Dr. Shameless, so dr.shameless702@gmail. Yeah. My Instagram is @drshameless702. And my Twitter is @drshameless702. So my Facebook, Dr. Shameless, it's pretty much all Dr. Shameless, whether there's a period or not is the only, so try it one way. If it doesn't work, try it the other way.
Facebook don't like me. Facebook done shut down Honestly Nae's pages 3 times, so I ain't making another one. But if you find me on Twitter, know that that's not education. That's just me being foolish.
Well, I enjoy your Instagram. I really do. I like your video blog. And very interesting, both of you. So, I mean, you just, touch the surface as people trying to understand who you guys are as, therapists. You just touch the surface. They don't know. You go deeper, much deeper.
And I do want to do a shameless plug. Here in Las Vegas, I just want to put it out there that I really work heavily within the trans community. And so if somebody is looking for a trans competent therapist, I want to throw my name in the ring. There's not a lot of us out here. And some people just need a therapist to do a letter for some surgery. Some people want to talk. Some people, it's a kid in the family and we need to talk about it with the family. But so there aren't a lot of us around. And so please reach out. I try to make room for my trans clients, even if my schedule is full. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. And you're right. There's not a lot of resources for the trans community.
No.
So, bless you for being available to people because, they need those resources, especially. I was so excited to have you guys on. I knew it was going to be very informative and just a great conversation and just to give people information on just how to loosen up and open up the dialogue. That's all I keep hearing. That's just a message, right? You got to open up the dialogue and say what you want and need and understand that it could be so many different things causing whatever lack of intimacy you're having. So thank you guys so much. Thank you, ladies, for being a part of In Your Ear Radio After Dark, extending your time. I know some of you are at a different time zone, but just being a part of the show, I really appreciate you both. Do you want to say anything before we get out of here? Either one of you?
Oh, y'all caught my shameless plugs. Buy them webinars, y'all.
That's what's up. Yeah. Sounds very good.
Come kick it for Kinktober. Okay. Come kick it for Kinktober, y'all.
I'm going to sign up. You're going to see me.
All right.
All right.
I appreciate you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night, and I look forward to chatting with you ladies again.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
All right, first caller. So we talked about sex. We got the conversation out there. You think you have any takeaways now? You think you can use some of that information? And
I got some takeaways. And one of the takeaways is not all women got that wop.
Okay. All right. That's what you took away from that.
No, I'm just playing. Now, it's definitely more technical than I thought. You know what I mean? A lot more going to it than just having a sexual attraction, getting yours off.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot.
I agree. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, my biggest takeaway was communication, which I already knew. I'm kind of like Laura, Dr. Shameless, where I'm kind of the detective. I'll ask questions to try to get an understanding on what's happening, like what's causing, whatever the disconnection is. I will ask questions and try to, reconnect. So I get that part, but just to know more, that sometimes it could be something even deeper than just, you bored with your partner. It could be trauma. It could be health. It can be, just things that you need to talk about, things you're uncomfortable with. So you shy away from, being sexual because you don't want to be touched in a certain way, or, body shaming and all of that. So I think it all makes sense and it's all important. I think a lot of our viewers will be able to take something away from it. Everybody, I think, can walk away with some type of breadcrumb to be able to ignite whatever they need to do to move forward and make their relationship better, because I think sex is very important.
You know what's real interesting to me? When she said, just because you say your vagina is tight, that don't necessarily mean what we think it means.
Right.
That was interesting to me.
But do you think about it? A person that is tense, your muscles get tight. The vagina is a part of your muscle, so it makes sense that if you that feels like it's a forceful situation, or just it could be that person is rejecting you. And one thing that Dr. Shameless brought up is language, the love language. Like, people don't know how to consent sometimes, so saying yes or no. So you have a situation where a person might not necessarily want to do it. And like she said, they might go, yeah, maybe, instead of a firm, yes, right now, let's go.
Well, no, her words, fuck yeah.
Yeah. So one of the languages, if you feel that tension or something just a little tighter, the message ain't, oh, she ready. The message is she ain't. She's feeling some type of way. And that might be a time to just stop and ask the question, like, is everything okay, right? So, so yeah. You just never know. You learn so much just being able to talk to people who done studies, have talked to people, have looked at behavior and things of that nature. So I'm glad we had that conversation. Thank you all who tuned in. So before, we get out of here, we definitely got to, chop it up about some things. I just want to mention something that was funny to me. Y'all heard about the cussing birds?
No, cussing birds. Oh,
Paris. To amuse me, right?
Paris got fired or something.
So it was a British wildlife park. They removed like 5 African gray parrots. Why they got to be African though? From the public view because of the foul language they were using. So they were quarantined together. This is how this all started, because during the quarantine, they were quarantined together, these 5 birds. And so they was picking up on each other's language. So when they let them back out into society to where people could come out and visit them, they was calling people names. I don't know specifically. Nobody quoted what the birds were saying. They just said they was cussing, but these are British. So, British people use different cuss words than we do. So I don't know specifically what the words were, but I thought it was funny when you walk by a bird and they calling you out your name. One was fat something, but they bleeped it out. So I don't know what they was calling the people, but I thought that just tickled me. I just thought that was just too funny that the birds was cussing because they was quarantined together. So that was something else. So I thought that was hilarious. If you guys were not here at the top of the show, we were talking about women in hair and men in hair. And shout out to Marquella who mentioned something. We were saying, are men comfortable with women with weaves and the wigs and blah, 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 as far as not being natural. And I reversed the question to ask the same for the men. Like, women, are we okay with men doing the lace fronts and the beards and all of that? So that was a good question. And yeah, Quella had responded to that earlier, saying something about, are we okay? What were you saying, first caller? You said something about color,
Beijing,
right?
Yeah, Beijing is
Yeah. So yeah, she had mentioned that, saying that for men, are we okay with that? Me personally, no. Do the gray. I think men look handsome with their gray hair. I don't want nothing smearing. But then I do understand that people, gotta feel comfortable within themselves. That's just my preference. I'm more with the natural guy on that nature. So that's that. That's just how I feel. But another thing is, one conversation that have been brought up is people getting jealous because their significant other is looking at other people while they're with them. How y'all feel about that? So your wife, and you see an attractive woman, do you look? And is that disrespectful?
I don't play those games.
So you don't look?
I don't. Like, if there was an attractive woman, it's different between just looking at and doing too much. Like, God damn, if you breaking your neck, then you out of pocket. But if you see somebody attractive, and if you happen to look, you look. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, we got eyes to see. Like, long as you're not looking with the look of lust. So
now what if, now, let me reverse it. Now, what if somebody is looking at your man like that and y'all together?
they can look as long as you don't touch.
Right, okay. It's a compliment if you ask me.
Yeah, you know, as long as you don't touch, don't try to grab or slide numbers and stuff. Then you're just doing too much. That's just disrespectful.
Right,
yeah,
right.
you got eyes. What them eyes for? To see, right? That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. So, what's your takeaway with the with this whole Breonna Taylor thing, with them releasing the audio and documents? Have you been following that?
Now, you know what? To really be honest, I stopped really paying attention to a lot of that stuff because it seemed like it's politicized now, right? But more importantly, the more they see it, it starts to desensitize us. So I refuse to watch the videos. Every now and again, I'll read a few articles here and there, but I don't want to put myself in a position to where I'm desensitizing myself because I'm seeing it so much.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm just kind of waiting it out.
Yep. Hope it all works out. Now, you know, I'm real teed up. I woke up this morning to, you know, I had already heard the day before, which was Friday, that the number 45, the president of the United States, had tested positive along with his wife with COVID. But to wake up this morning and see the news and people talking about, oh, the president, he doesn't have any symptoms, or they talking about it like he in the hospital on a respirator, and people that was going in hard on him now are saying prayers, my thoughts and prayers. That just teed me off this morning to see that. To him, you know, and I'll say it, I stand by it. You know, this is a man that he hasn't been a good leader as far as informing, you know, the country of what's necessary, what we need to do to protect ourselves and to you know, minimize the spread. Instead, he did the opposite, holding rallies, not wearing a mask, telling people it was a hoax, talking about, you know, putting blame instead of, you know, just buckling down and trying to save lives. Instead, over 200,000 people have died, over 7 million people contracted. And so, like, now that he got it, you got people coming out of the woodwork, senators and VPs talking about prayers and thoughts. Like, I'm insulted. What do you mean? Who cares? Like, I'm not sitting around waiting for you to die, but I don't care. What's your thoughts on it?
That's politics. I mean, you're supposed to say that in politics. Now, my real thought is, if he don't die, he didn't have it. It don't count. You know, you just never know with him, because he was the same guy. He was the same guy telling his people, you know, that how it wasn't real and it wasn't that deadly. And then when numbers came back, he's the same one who said it is what it is, right? When over X amount of people had died. Oh, it is what it is. Okay, well, you know, you reap what you sow. It is what it is.
It is what it is. But my thing is, I know you're saying that people have to be political, but you don't have to say anything. It's not required that you speak up about this. You know what I'm saying? You can just be silent, chew on your popcorn, and see what happens next. You don't have to say thoughts and prayers, especially because I think most of the people that are speaking up are lying. But then you have the other people on the other side who call themselves Christians or whatnot, who say that you have to be have it in your heart to wish him well. Why? Did we forget who we were talking about? You notice how this conversation just went away 24 hours later because of now the COVID that his family, his wife and him, he have tested positive for COVID. The conversation was about standing back and standing by. And now you don't hear that anymore. Now people are having feelings for him. Like, you don't care about me. You don't care about my demise. As a matter of fact, you inciting and encouraging people to riot against me, you know, by saying the things that you say. But now I should be wishing you well because that's the Christian thing to do. Or if you have a good heart, that irritated me even more. I just think it's so fake. And I think that, you know, you don't have to go in and say, I hope you die, or say anything negative, especially if that's not how you feel. But at the same time, are you really concerned about whether this man lives or he suffers? Like, maybe some people need to suffer because how, you know, I know people personally who have lost their parents because of this disease. Okay. If you want me to feel sorry for him, dude, it's your fault. It's your fault that we in the situation that we in. And why are people taking their tails and tucking them and acting like none of the stuff that's been going on since March and before then that he knew about is not an issue. You're not talking about that now. Like, what the hell is going on with people? I'm tired of Black people being told that we're so forgiving. We are good people. It's in our nature, it's in our DNA. But we don't, they bring up the Bible. You gotta love your enemy, pray for your enemy. Says who? Why would I pray for? Why would I pray for anybody who is praying on me? Why would I pray for anybody who is preying on me? You know what I'm saying? So I think people be getting it twisted and they acting like sheep when it comes to this. And I'm not encouraging and inciting people to change their attitude and be mean and rude towards him. But I'm just saying, how y'all forget that just the other day he was sending dog whistles to take us out. Stand by. We might need you if law and order can't handle their business.
Right.
That's what I'm upset about.
Right. And again, I just think it's all they're playing politics. You want to say what's nice. You want to be politically correct. When you see somebody down and out, the politically correct thing to do is wish them well, opposed to kick them.
So it's not politically correct not to say anything, just not say anything. Because silence is a response too. And look who you're dealing with. You be on there talking about sleepy, biting, coughing. He wouldn't prayers. People be in their grave and he talk about them. He was on the last presidential debate they just had. He was talking about a man's son who was dead.
Who died? Yeah.
One who was suffering from drug addiction. Like, why are we trying to be so heartful to people? Like, I'm sorry, if Zimmerman caught the COVID, I'm not going to be texting or on Twitter talking about thoughts and prayers.
Right.
Like, where does this end? Where do we stand up for ourselves and speak up and say, yeah, the chickens have come home to roost. Deal with it. This is what you said was fake. Like, we ain't got to sit up here and act like, we so upstanding, good citizens that we care about people, because I don't like fakeness. Don't be fake. You ain't got to be rude. You ain't got to be nasty, but don't be fake. So don't get on TV to my thoughts and prayers.
Right.
When yesterday you was saying this man is a clown and an idiot and this, that, and the third. You really care about his health?
Right. And see, my first question was, when I heard about him having COVID and possibly having it, I'm wondering, is he going to pursue hydrochloroquine and bleach? Right. That's what he suggested before.
He going to drink the Clorox? It's going to be to me, this is all propaganda. This is an agenda, and it's definitely diversion. And I'm nobody's fool. And I see how they trying to play us. And I'm insulted that my people are allowing themselves to be played right now. And that's just where all this is coming from, to be honest, because I feel like people are allowing themselves to be played right now. Ain't it ironic that you catch COVID? This dude have big news. His headlines be big. It don't be no minor stuff. Oh, the president. When Barack Obama was in office, the president landed in Cuba. It was minor stuff. This dude, he be talking about stand back and stand by, and Muslims are all terrorists, and Africans come from shithole countries, and Mexicans are rapists, murderers. White women talking about women in their cycles and talking about war heroes, calling them cowards. Whatever word he was, because they got caught and refused to be released until all of their people were released. Like, dude, you skipped 5 times. You came in with bone spurs. Each time you were supposed to enlist into the military, 5 times you made an excuse, and you got the nerve to talk about other people. But then we on social media talking about thoughts and prayers. I'm just saying, let's just keep it real. It's 2020. It's showing itself. 2020 didn't show his ass. You can be real and just keep it real. Just say what it is. And I guess I'm just upset about it.
Yeah, because if the shoe was on the other foot, he wouldn't be sending out thoughts and prayer messages.
No, absolutely not. He would be, whatever it is, he wouldn't be saying, no telling what he would say. And it's not to compare yourself to him, because I saw stuff on social media where, it was a women empowerment post, I think it was, where the woman was basically saying, you see your president says this, that, and the third. So be yourself. Don't be on social media being politically correct. Just do you and say you. And I respect that, but don't use him as an example, because he shouldn't be in any place of leadership. He's not equipped. He's not trained. He's not qualified. He's not the one. So, I just, that just really just boiled my blood to just see people that were going hard against him now acting like we have sympathy for him. You don't have sympathy for us and the people who have died. Are you kidding me? Thank you for letting me.
Yeah. Now, since we're there, how do you feel about the debate?
The debate is what I expected, to be honest. I knew it was going to be ratchet. I know how that man Trump is. So I was definitely with just a guilty pleasure, just seeing some ratchet. It was like watching The Housewives or some Jerry Springer.
Right, hip hop.
But actually, it was hard for me to sit through. I tried to turn it off, but my sweetie, he wanted to continue watching, and because it was hard to watch. Like you can't set your expectations for this president, because even when you how low he can go, he goes even lower. I mean, you just can't set your expectations. So it was hard to watch for me, but I did get through it. And I just said they need to get a mute button. They need to get a mute. And if they do it again, my mind's made up. And I think most people are. Those who are undecided, I don't know what to tell you. I don't think the debate is going to change your mind, because all the things he's done in these 4 years and prior to that got him into office without any question, and you still not sure, you want to compare the lesser of two evils, you can't see. I mean, I can bring this back to Hitler, who was also elected, to run the country. And those people who may have voted him in ended up losing their lives and families, their hair, their teeth, their skulls, their ears, their eyes, their, everything, because of this wicked man. I mean, can't you tell? This is the type of guy, if he given the authority, you don't like him, you say something negative about him. If he had the authority, he would shut you down and throw you in some chamber or kick you out of the country. So you have to be realistic about who you're dealing with. People be taking people, not on faith, for their value. And I see him for who he is. Shout out to Maya Angelou, who says when people show you who they are, believe him. I believe who he is. And I know that he's very capable, given the opportunity, given the power. Yeah.
It's you know what? I agree with everything you're saying, right? But I also think that Joe Biden dropped the ball with really touching on issues that he should have. He chose to wrestle in a pig pen. You play with pigs, you get muddy. And I wish he would have done. What's that?
Well, how could he though? With all the, just think about trying to have a conversation. Somebody did yeah. You can't even think about your thoughts because that person is yeah in your ear to where you can't talk. I do agree that he could have came with him, but for him to even tackle him, he would have had to go low. But I would have went low. When he started talking about my kids, I'd have been like, well, your wife, let me see her. Ain't nobody talking about her papers. He want to talk about Barack need to show his papers. He want to talk about everybody else.
Right.
Her wife's papers and her mama and daddy's papers that came here from another country off a genius visa. So people be so quick to try to stand up, but it's okay to fight back. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to fight back. Like if somebody's swinging, it's okay to defend yourself. You don't have to just sit there and take it. Maybe Joe Biden was trying to do that Martin Luther King stuff, but even Martin Luther King learned later in life that you can't play fair with the devil. You cannot play fair with the devil. You have to go low. Not, you don't have to be outside of who you are in your soul, but you got to go low sometimes. You got to meet them where they are to take them down. You can't be way up here. You can't reach them from there. You talking a whole nother language.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say another debate. This was more entertaining than the versus battle.
Yeah, it was. I just knew.
Yeah.
Biden probably went behind stage and had some brown liquor for sure. He had a couple rocks. Like I know, because you can't get through that without drinking. Because woo.
Biden said, "Would you shut up, man?" No, we lit.
But I can't blame him. But there was a lot of things that he didn't touch on that he could have, because number 45 spent a lot of time just spewing lies. And for people who don't read and just looking for a talking point, all he had to do is say, yeah, he said that wasn't true. Yeah, he said this, he said that. But a lot of things that he said, 99.9999% of the things that he said were false. And he spewed a lot of propaganda and put them dog whistles out there. And for those of us who are wise, we saw it. We heard it.
For what it's worth, I was reading an article a couple of days ago, right? That said when they asked about Black Lives Matter, they got 2 minutes to answer the question, right? Mm-hmm. Each candidate spent, I think it was 53 seconds, then there was 57 seconds on the question. Mm-hmm. So it was less than allotted time. And I think given the current environment of the country, you definitely should have spent the whole 2 minutes, or sometimes even over the 2 minutes, opposed to just under 2 minutes collectively. Yeah, and I thought that was interesting. When I read that.
Yeah, some recommendations that were, if they have another debate, is to play it to where you get your 2 minutes. If you go over those 2 minutes, then we subtract from your next time. And it's easy to say, okay, let's make these rules. But if a person doesn't play by the rules, it's hard to, what's the purpose of having the rules? Because they had rules before they went into this debate that you have 2 minutes, you have to allow the other person to finish their thought before you start talking. He just talked over everybody. So what you need, shout out to Joe Madison who recommended doing it on Zoom. That way you can mute him and even pull his face off the camera and let Joe Biden finish his thought. You know what I mean? And pull him back up. And he can say whatever he want to say. You know, by him being muted and you not being able to see his face, he'll say that the media was manipulating the conversation. But you had your 2 minutes. Everybody saw that. Put a ticker up so everybody know, and then pull him down so he can't be talking while Joe Biden is trying to, get his thought across. So I think that's a good way to do it too. That's what I think.
I like that. I like muting somebody mic, cutting them off, let who's ever trying to let them go.
Ooh, I know you do.
I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. So it's been a nice weekend. I'm enjoying it. I hope that you enjoy yours. I enjoyed our Dr. Ruth conversation. You remember Dr. Ruth? Were you too young to know?
Yeah, I'm too young.
Just an old lady who talked about sex all the time. You just wondered if she really had sex as much as she talked about it. But she was also a sex therapist. Little lady too. So I definitely enjoyed that conversation earlier today with Shanae and Dr. Shameless. That's In Your Ear Radio After Dark. For all of you guys who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, I love and appreciate you guys for supporting us. First caller for sure. Thank you for being my co-host today. I don't know. You got anything you want to say before we get up out of here?
No, that's it for me. I ain't got nothing to say. It's been a long week.
Yeah.
I'm good.
That's what's up. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend to everybody out there. Thank you. See you next weekend. Y'all have a good weekend.
Yeah.
Good night.